So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Soaring Society of Boulder Ground School series. We've had about 20, I think, in the series. They're on most of them are recorded on the YouTube website. So go to YouTube, our YouTube channel. It gets sent out with the invitation. Please go there and subscribe, like any of the videos that are on there. I put one on yesterday that was on how to read a skew T, the very basic of a skew T. It was really a prep so that everybody can watch Bob Ferris's excellent weather program presentation. So please go to our YouTube channel and like what you like and subscribe. Tonight we're going to hear from Scott Vaninwagen. Scott's a longtime member of the club. He's a tow pilot. He does a lot of work he helps out with the electrical stuff. We call him Sparky sometimes. And he's a great club member. He flies his own LAC 17. And at any rate, Scott is going to talk tonight about transitioning from being a pilot who just kind of orbits the glider port to one that really gets up and does some long cross countries, which he does. I mean, he runs up 400, 500, 600 points and on OLC, so that's great. He's rated single engine land, multi-engine land, instrument, commercial, glider. He's a senior parachute rigger. I thought he had more sense than that, but I guess he's willing to fall out of the sky like I don't know what. And he was initially into skydiving, but later got his commercial license so that he could take the nuts up to go jump out. And he holds a CFII from the 1980s, and did some primary instruction training and tail wheel. He loves flying tail wheel. He's got his own Kit Fox that he flies. He put a new engine in it himself. He's got a big engine in his Kit Fox now. So I think that's distracting him from gliding, which is not necessarily a good thing. He took a long break, like a lot of us. Took a long break after, and then got back into soaring. It joined SSB in 2013, starting with towing. And he loves to tow, and he's a great tow pilot. And he thinks that all power planes should be tail wheels. But I don't know if I really want to fly the big jet. When I fly the airlines, I don't know if I want the tail wheel. I think I kind of like the tricycle gear on the Boeings. But any rate, with that, I'm going to turn this over to Scott. And Scott, please give us the presentation that you have planned. I think it'll be very enjoyable, especially for the pilots who are aspiring up and coming pilots.
Okay, great. And sort of I guess a disclaimer in a way, just like anywhere else, you look in the club and there are people that have less experience than I have. There are people that have a whole lot more experience than I have. And yeah, I've been doing some cross countries, but I can't hold a candle to some of our guys that, they're regularly doing 900, 1,000K, some 1,100K. So anyway, it just seemed to be pretty safe to just talk about my own experience and in particular, transitioning to doing cross countries. One of the guys just told me I was close. I didn't really know what that meant. And then it just sort of happened. So let me, Armand, you may have to help me here. I'm going to switch over to my presentation. And let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna, pardon me guys, this is the first time I've done this. And
oh, it isn't. You practice. Come on. There you go.
Okay, we're good there. And I'm going to bring up my little red pointer. Yeah, okay. And let me get this thing out of my way. There we go. Okay. Probably everybody can relate to this at some point. Some people have to go way, way back, but anyway, this is sort of representative of my early flying. It still is representative of flying on a crappy day. But to give you perspective, Colorado Springs is down here, Fort Collins is up here, and you can see my pointer, right? Yeah.
Yes, we see it.
Yeah, yeah, okie dokie. So this is about as far as I could get away in the beginning. In fact, I couldn't even get that far away. And after some work, several years and a little bit of work, and let's see if we can, boom. It'd be a couple of years ago, that'd be before we had all the smoke from the forest fires. This was sort of a typical cross country that I was able to do. So you can see the difference, and let's just continue on here. For me, the very beginning of Soaring was a series of steps, and actually I enjoyed them. It was slow as far as I was concerned, but in the very beginning, I guess I didn't want to get a tow to the hogback or the foothills. I wanted to be able to get to the foothills on my own, and so I'd release in the box, and it's just like you try to make it over there, and you'd end up having to turn back because you didn't have enough altitude. Until one day, what do you know? You managed to get enough altitude in the box to make it over to the Flatirons, and then you got a little bit more altitude there, and got to stay up some. And then the next natural step was moving a little bit further into the foothills. And what would typically go on there was I could get to the hogback, I'd start moving back, and I couldn't stay up, so I'd come back out. And I think in particular, I'd go to Scott Westfall's house, and I could usually find something there. I'd climb back up a couple thousand feet from where I was, and I'd push back again. And then eventually, you got to feel where to go to try to find lift, and you push back a bit, you get higher there, and then you could push back a little bit more. And really, I think once I got to that step, then what my eyes were on the divide, and I thought, man, wouldn't that be great to be able to get up there and to be able to look around? That the site just had to be awesome, and on occasion too, while I'm working into the foothills, it's like you get a peek of the other side through the valleys up on the divide. And one day it finally made it up there, and it was as good or better than what I expected. And then after some time, then I could get up there more consistently. So in the beginning, the whole process was a series of steps. It took for me between 2 and 3 years, I think, to get to where I could get up on the divide. And I enjoyed it. In fact, I'm glad I couldn't progress more quickly. It was just satisfying going through the steps. And then for the newer guys, the benefits of the progression, you're honing your thermaling skill. For the local area, you're building a bag of favorite spots to look for lift. And that's dependent on conditions, what the winds are like, how much heating, what terrain you're over. There was also my intro to convergence. I remember I was up in probably the 134 Bravo Charlie, and I was fairly high, and I was into something that it just felt like somebody was outside the glider grabbing onto the ailerons, just banging the things around. And I hadn't quite experienced something like that in a power plane. And when I got down, I described it to my instructors, Will Matthews, and he said probably convergence. And looking back on it, yeah, I think it was. Another part of the benefits of the progression, learning where not to be. It seems like a good deal of the sport is learning where to be and where not to be, where not to be. A good example on the leeward side of a ridge when the wind's blowing. And there are places near Boulder too, where I learned you want to be careful. You want to have enough altitude. They can be deceptive, and I guess how high the terrain can be. And the days of conditions are such that we're scratching around, we can't get away. Benefits are difficult situations are going to occur. You know, sometimes it's our bad decisions that have gotten us into it. Sometimes things just happen. And I can, probably everybody can say from experience, I know I can, the stress can get pretty high. We're pretty unhappy. And the time that we spent scratching around trying to stay up when the conditions are pretty cruddy, it can be to our benefit to help us keep our cool, not panic, and to actually to try to dig ourselves out of whatever we got ourselves into. This is one of my earlier experiences of that very thing. I'll just go ahead and read it. After numerous flights in our prior 134, I began flying Sierra Golf, the discus. And at that time, it had a Cambridge 302, which is the Vario, and the 303, the flight display installed. And the 303, for people that don't know the Cambridge equipment, the 303 is a nav display. And one of the parameters that it shows is the difference between what altitude you're presently at and the altitude that you need in order to get back to the waypoint that you put in, which at that time would be Boulder. And so just what that means is Boulder's at 5,300 feet. I've dialed in a safety altitude of 1,000 feet. So it wants to get me back at 6,300 feet. And it calculates that, maybe I need 3,000 feet to get back. So it'd be 9,300 feet. And if I'm at 10,000, then the display will say I have 700 feet. The difference between where I am and what I need to be able to safely get back. And what I would do is keep track of the differential altitude and use that to decide when to stop pushing ahead and to turn back. The problem is the 303 doesn't know what is between you and, in that case, Boulder. And in this situation, I was at Empire going up I-70, and this is where I was. And I'm trying to fly safely, and my display saying I've got about, I don't know, maybe 2,000 feet above what I need to be able to get back. And it's not that far. It's under 15 miles, I think, straight line from Empire to Boulder. But when I turned around, that's what I saw. And I had a fit. Over here where the red dot is, that's not the Flatirons. That is, I think, the Mount Thornton area. So Boulder is on the other side of this. I just wouldn't head out in that kind of terrain at that kind of altitude. The discus is still here, Sierra Golf, and I'm here, so I made it back safely, but it was definitely a learning situation. And I guess those kind of things, I don't like being in those kind of situations, but man, do they make an impression on you. You just don't forget them. Let's see, another area, just for the people learning the area in the hills near Boulder. Boulder's over here, and hold up here. Give me a sec, I'm going to turn on, there we go, okay. Boulder's here, Gold Lake is right around here, and Mount Thornton that I just mentioned is right down around here. And let's see here. Nope. Give me a second here. I jumped over. Okay. This is the view, a view from just using Google Earth, 11,000 MSL from Gold Lake, looking down towards Boulder. And looking at it, it looks pretty good to me. I think I've seen it like that quite a bit. And unless you get into some horrible sink, it's easy to get out. So I feel pretty comfortable there. This is Mount Thornton area looking towards Boulder from, again, 11,000 feet. Both Gold Lake and Mount Thornton are about the same distance from Boulder, but the views are very different. And I have gotten down like this and a little bit lower a time or two. And I find it very uncomfortable. I've never looked at trying to go out this way. I ought to look at it in the power plane sometime, but it looked like potentially you could get into rising terrain trying to get out this way. To try to get out of here, if you can't find lift, then you have to go around the left side of the hill. And then I've gone out Coal Creek Canyon. The whole point of just showing this is one area where I know I'm careful. I keep my eye on my altitude, and just to give a heads up to guys that maybe haven't been out to the Mount Thornton area yet. And just to point things out, there's a structure on top of there. I think you say there's maybe 3 peaks here. On this peak, there's a structure at the top, and then winds are usually out of the west, and you'll have turbulence on the leeward side, the east side of this ridge that can make life difficult for you. Okay, let's continue on. Whoops. There we go. This is my first cross country, the Red Trace. And Boulder's here. You can see it's sort of it wasn't a straight shot. Yeah, the outgoing trace is this one, and I'm running along the divide, and then at this point decide to make somewhere in here anyway, decide to make the jump and go over on the west side. And it's the first time that I've done this in a glider. So first cross country, crossing the divide, cruising the divide just west of Boulder in the Discus Sierra Gulf. The weather on the west side looked good for soaring, and just decide to make the jump, and set the Cambridge to waypoint to Granby, and Granby became my base that I'm working from. And if I can't stay up, that's where I'll land. I continued exploring, which let's go back up. Granby Airport would be right around here. And from there, I just went on down, just gradually losing altitude. And I get down to this area, and it's about time to turn back, again, based on the differential altitude on the 303, and turning around to look and see what was behind me. And I got above a dish-shaped valley, and lift was really good. And I just took note of that. And it just sort of impressed me as maybe something like a concave mirror for the solar radiation. I've run into it a number of times before. It saved my butt a time or two. And I think Joe also mentioned when he was in Dalhart that somebody gave him the heads up when he went down in the beginning, that if you're trying to get back up and you're having problems, go to the cattle watering holes, that you'll have water in the center of it. But again, it's dish shaped, dirt, And frequently you'll find a thermal coming off of that. So I wonder if it's not maybe the same process. Anyway, Granby remained my fallback until recovered enough altitude to cross the divide. And this is what, every time I've gone to Granby, this is the picture for me. For some reason, I always end up considerably below the divide and have to work my way up. And I think Bob Caldwell, you pointed out, I think it's my first long cross country flight. No, it wasn't. It was after that. And you asked for me to do a little write up on it. And this was sort of probably the tail end of the write up that I got here to Granby. This was the site. And I think it was maybe even a little bit lower. And I could easily land at Granby. And I went up to this looks like a little local ski area. And I frequently can pick up a thermal off of here. And even though it was late in the day, I'd done probably 500K and had been out to Crested Butte, probably Crested Butte, Aspen, Eagle, and then coming back. And tried to get lift around the Gore range, and that's never worked for me. I don't know. It looks like you should find lift there, but anyway, ended up back here, and it took I don't know, at least a good 45 minutes to be able to climb up and work your way back, climb up some, work back, climb up, work back, and eventually I got up on a ridge with a sharp edge and hit a thermal. It took me up to 17, and boom, I'm on my way home. But anyway, that's the first cross country. Again, for the newer guys, what do I take with me? I put in a tie down kit, in fact, in case I land out somewhere. I've got a tracker so people can see where I've been, where I'm going. I also carry an ARC GPS emergency beacon. It's I was going to have the thing here, but it's probably about 3.5 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, 1 inch deep, and you only activate the thing if you've got serious trouble, real serious trouble. And it will transmit your GPS location up to a satellite system, which if you're out of touch with it, within 15 minutes, you'll be in touch with the satellite. And you've already registered your device. They know who you are. They know who to contact because you told them, and they will send people out, and they will expect you to be in a pretty bad shape since you called them. Day pack. I always throw a day pack in back. Got a light down jacket, which sometimes I just pull that out while I'm flying. It can just get cold when you're up high. Got some energy bars, water, mosquito repellent. I think that came from Al Osario. He ended up, I think it was him, somebody ended up somewhere and they were getting clobbered by mosquitoes. I never had thought about it before. So repellents in there, got knife, little medical kit, cell phone with a retrieve list, and my wallet. Flight computer. I have two of them. The main one is 8-inch tablet. And well, let me back up a little bit. Initially, I used Top Hat. And I'm trying to remember the name of the original program that runs in the background, but it's a nice program. It's got a nice user display. And I was using that on an Android phone, and I wanted to have something that was a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to read. Not that I'm getting older, but and so I picked up an 8-inch tablet. It was pretty cheap, like $150, and I put on an LK 8000 for the reason that 8000, you put Top Hat on it, and it's just too big. 8000 lets you display a lot more information. The 8-inch tablet could do it. And then my secondary in the LAC is a Cambridge 302 and a 303. What I've done is I set up the LK8000 to look forward on the flight path, and then frequently end up using the 303 to look backwards. For instance, on one cross country, I was going over Aspen. I was headed towards Eagle. I could see at the end of the valley at the north a cloud that was there, a single cloud that was consistent, and I decided to head for that. And the cloud wasn't that far away from Eagle, and so I set the 8000 up to look forward to Eagle, and then the 303 was looking back at Aspen, and I used that in order to determine my go no go point. And as it was, I could arrive up to that cloud with plenty of altitude. And sure enough, once you get up there, the cloud is gone. But there's a heck of a thermal, spooky actually, with not being that high above. I was above the terrain at least 1,000 feet, but still it was very abrupt and strong, but it was there, and worked out well. So anyway, I'll do that if I've got a long stretch. First longer cross country. Again, Fort Collins up here, Colorado Springs, Denver, and this was taking off going up over El Dorado Canyon to Mount Evans. By the time I got to Mount Evans, I was probably maybe down to 16,000 feet, would be a guess, 15 to 16, pardon me. And there had been a cloud streak. There were, and you could see one out going towards Leadville, coming from Crested Butte to Leadville. But the first cloud, it was for the first time being out there, not knowing how the terrain acted as far as thermals and like that. It was too much of a jump. So I hung out at Mount Evans. Again, found a nice basin where there's air coming up slowly. I gained about 500 feet. And in that time, the cloud streak came towards me, got under the first cloud, and bang, you're up at 17.5. And then just really ripping all the way over to Leadville, over to Crested Butte area. And that's where the street was originating. And it had one heck of a thermal at the beginning. And it could have gone further, but I just figured for the first cross country, that was good enough for me. And just retraced my path. And it was quite an experience. So first longer cross country, what made it happen? I was flying Sierra Golf. It was ready to go. I was ready to go. We were sitting at the table outside the shack. There's a tow pilot, an experienced cross-country pilot, which was Tom Zollmer, and then myself. And we're just waiting on the weather. And he just pointed out, you could just see a couple little puffs popping up at the entrance to El Dorado. And Tom just said to me, he said, "You should be in the air already." And it's just, I wouldn't have done that on my own. I'd like to see a little bit more going on, but I took his word at it. Bang, we got in the air, got to the entrance to the canyon at 8,800 feet, caught two thermals, bango, up at 17.5 and taking off to Mount Evans. Well, what did I take away from this? Have the ship ready early and be ready to launch. And then have in flight log, select that you're ready to launch in order to get your position on the tow list. Being ready early has stuck with me since that flight. There were just a number of times where I'm still piddling around. People are already starting to launch, and it's good. And you wonder what in the world you've been doing. So anyway, be ready to go early, which means have your parachute, lunch, water relief tube, whatever in the glider. And already have gone and visited the outhouse. And then for me, when I see signs of conditions such that you think you can stay up, then go. I've had some of my best flights venturing out early. And even when some people are saying you're going too early, my reasoning has been, at least I can get up in the air. I don't have to sit here on the ground waiting. And I've gotten some of my best flights that way. And then the risk that you run is if you got a whole bunch of people there, you end up at the end of the tow list. If you end up back at Boulder, and if you got a bunch of people there, you've got a long wait before you get to tow again. So you have to decide how much risk to take. What do I think is important to be a better cross-country pilot? Have an accomplished cross-country mentor if possible. I don't really know that I had one. And I like doing things on my own anyway. But if there was anybody, it would have been Tom Zollner, that we would just talk a fair amount. And I guess he paid a little bit of attention because he was the guy that said, you're awfully close. And I still, at that point, I didn't know what he meant, or I didn't know how he was making that judgment. When I'm hanging out, maybe I'm all rigged, ready to go, and just sitting there up by the shack or wherever. With our guys that I think really know what they're doing, I'll go up and I'll ask them, what do you see out in the clouds? What are they telling you? What do you think is out there? I'll do that. Done it frequently with Al. And he's seen, he's pointed out things that I didn't even know were there. For instance, clouds were streeting out of the west. And so it's okay. So you get under a street, maybe you can get over to Vale or something. But then he says, in addition to that, you see where the clouds are building up a little bit more, and you see each street has that. He said, that's convergence. So he said, what you want to do, get on up, get in the street, get up to that point, hook a left, and then you're in a convergence line, and then you can, take off going to the south. So I really, I try to talk with the guys like that, not only to just figure out where to go that day, but to learn to read things myself. And at the beginning of the soaring day, if I see one of our top guys prepping, I go over and ask them just what they're doing. I do that, done that a number of times with Pedja. We're both out early. Maybe he's watering up the ship or something. And I'll just ask him, so what do you think is going to work today? Where are you planning on going? And I know once or twice I've tried to follow him, and I've gotten down around South Park, but conditions, I guess, weren't strong enough for me to want to continue after that. Let's go on here. Wrap up. When I show up to hop in the sailplane, I mentioned before, get ready early. I be prepared. I have on board food, drink, cannula, plenty of oxygen, relief apparatus, computer charts, warm shoes and jackets. Sometimes, man, I've landed just because my feet are so darn cold. Land out gear. The whole thing is, sometimes you think it doesn't look like it's really going to be that great of a day. You go up and you find out you can really go places, or you can, do whatever you want to do. And no, you didn't have your relief tube. You didn't bring that. You were minimal oxygen. Maybe you didn't have anything warm in the cockpit with you. And here you could have just had a really nice day. And after 2 or 3 hours, you're back on the ground just because, physically you couldn't stay up any longer. And talk about frustrating. Continued. Decide if you're going to try to go where you like or where the conditions are conducive. What I did quite a bit in the beginning, it'd be springtime, guys would be running along the front range, running down to Pikes Peak, running up north, maybe to Wyoming. I'd be trying to get to the divide. I guess I just like being on top of things and looking around. and it'd be a struggle. Maybe I'd get up there, but then everybody else would be doing 400K, 500K and more. And finally I realized I've got to make the decision is, am I going to try to go where I want to go, even though the conditions aren't the greatest for it? And you learn a lot doing that. Or you just want to look, what is the weather saying that it can do? And you want to just go on a nice day trip somewhere. And I probably tend towards the latter more now. Where I am right now, trying to figure out when to be, I'm usually conservative. I like having altitude. I like the safety of it, but you're not going as far and as fast as you can. And I just realized on some of the longer cross countries that I had to figure out when I should be more aggressive and take advantage of strong conditions or whatever the condition is at the time. So learn to decide, which side to be on, conservative or aggressive, and it surely wouldn't be that the whole day. It's just you're at a certain point and things are working really good. It's just like, well, maybe instead of just trying to maintain altitude all the time, kick the speed up and lose a little bit of altitude, and you're most probably going to be able to make it up a little bit further down. Always have a way out, whether it be the terrain you're going into, having a land out, the ridge you're working. Just like in power flying, you're low, you're sort of low going towards the ridge. You don't go at it perpendicularly, go at an angle, typically a 45-degree angle. And if things aren't working out, it doesn't take that much of a turn to get away and get into dropping terrain. Same with weather. Number of times I've been caught by thunderstorms and just have a way to be able to cope with the weather. For me, even after some years of soaring, a poor cross-country day with marginal lift can be a great day for honing skills. I still enjoy going up in weak conditions and just seeing what I can do. And man, when you get into a tough spot, on some other day, that work that you put in can really pay off. So finally, I came across these two articles by Kai Gertsen. One is Landing Out. Beginning of every season, I read that just to get refreshed. And the other one that he wrote is Intro to Cross Country, and you've got the links there. And because you guys were so patient, I've included a bonus section. And for you guys with a lot of experience, this isn't much, but just what it is I've soared in Boulder most of the time. I've been at Salida twice with sailplanes with a club. And this time, Joe Brack told me I might be able to get into the camp at Mackay, Idaho. And I did that last summer. And here's Mackay. The features when you're flying there, we were towing into this area, and the thermals were pretty consistent. You get off there, climb up. You could run up into this terrain. You have these fingers that you could work. I could get on this finger easily. I never made it over to this finger. And there are quite a few number of strips. Joe would know a lot more about this area than I do. But there are quite a few nice strips to be able to land out on. And Mackay has their annual regatta task. And what that is starting out at Mackay, and then you've got several waypoints or turn points. First one is here. Second one is here. Actually, it's somewhere over in here. They're right close together. Third one is a controlled field down here. Fourth one is this thing. I don't think Arco was one. Arco's got a strip at it too, but I think the next point was this, and then the next point was up here at Howe, and then from there on back home. And what makes this memorable to me was flying out here. I'd never been out in the plains before like that. And to add to it, it's not just plains, it's lava fields. And I got a pretty good idea what it would be trying to land out and stuff like that. I didn't want to do it. And even probably if you got stuck in trying to land on a road, I don't think it would be very pretty. And let me bounce down here. That's what it looks like. This is the South Butte that you fly out to. And anyway, what I did was like the flight that I mentioned from Aspen to Eagle, that when I was venturing out here, I set the tablet looking forward, and then I set the 303 looking backwards to Arco to figure out when I should be turning around if I had to. And why I did a path like this was just, there was a convergence line. I could, from over here, I could see it, a line of clouds. And so I just headed straight for it. Out here is just all blue, like a lot of this was blue sky flying. Out here, I just happened to hit two thermals, picked up 1,000, 1,500 feet, got to the convergence line, it worked, ran on over, flew over the top of that, and then halfway back to Howe, then the convergence line died. And then almost back here, then my Vario pooped out. And so it was fly by your seat flying after this. And there were some mediocre thermals here, got up high enough, got into this terrain, strong thermals, got up high. And then it was a piece of cake getting home after that. So anyway, that was a good experience for me, just getting away from home, trying something different, and being able to do something like this. So Armand, that wraps it up for me. Should I just hit the stop share?
Yeah, go ahead, stop share.
Boom, done.
Okay.
Yep.
Scott, thanks. I like that, how you started out just trying to get to the hogback, and then trying to get to the Continental Divide, and then once you were able to do that, then you were able to get up and go away and all that. So I think this was great for our aspiring pilots to hear. And of course, next week we're going to be hearing from our aspiring pilots. It'll be the capstone session of this series, and we'll want to hear from pilots who are still trying to get to the hogback, or still trying to get to the Continental Divide, or still trying to get to Estes Park or whatever. And I think a lot of pilots who are really doing long cross countries will remember those days, and there's a lot of us who me just very recently was able to start doing that. And I think there's a lot of pilots who are much more advanced than myself, or even you, who are doing long cross countries. But hopefully it'll help everybody remember, and it will help those pilots give mentoring. And the mentoring that we need to do at Boulder, it doesn't have to be serious mentoring where we get in, we take a good soaring day and go, in the DG and go fly with somebody else. But like you were saying, you get a lot of help on the ground. You get out there, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock, the queue hasn't really started. You're standing there, you're looking, you're talking to people and saying, well, which way are you going to go? Are you going to go north today? Are you going to go south? Mostly we go south, I guess. It's usually better air to the south. But, you know, you talk about the goals and the aspirations and where you think you can do it, where you think you can get your objectives made. Our club is excellent for that. I don't, you know, another club I was at before, people were kind of guarded and they didn't want to give away too much. I don't know why. They're just overly competitive. I do sense a lot of competitive nature in the Soaring Society of Boulder, but I also see it as a camaraderie of competition where people are able to, or are willing to help each other. And so with that, I'd like to open this up to questions. Does anybody have questions for Scott or something to discuss about flying in our rather challenging mountain conditions? And we talk about, you know, I got down to 14,000 feet and I was really scared. That's really low. Well, you know, for a lot of pilots, 14,000 feet sounds unbelievably high. But you know, we need to get high and stay high. 17,000 feet feels pretty good when you get up there. Maybe it's cold, but you know, if you can go a long way at 17,000. You get down 13,000, man, you're out of the band, and it gets pretty scary because you're below the ridges. And so anyway, does anybody have any questions? I see one. John says any handouts, but we'll get into that later. Let me end with how we're going to do handouts for this series. But does anybody have any questions or comments?
And if anybody wants a copy of the presentation, they can email me, or if they have any questions, like I think Christopher was asking about the Cambridge 303, and just shoot me an email, and be happy to go and correspond with them. And yeah, there's one other thing that just came to mind. You're talking, Armand, about being up at 17, and that even though it's cold, it's pretty nice having the altitude. It was another one time that I was around with somebody in Al Osario. He was asking us a question, and he just said, you realize you lose 1,000 feet, you've lost about 7 miles that you're able to cover. And being a power pilot, it's just like 1,000 feet. Well, yeah, I really hadn't thought of it that way before. And after thinking about that, it's just like when I'm out there and I've lost 500 feet, instantly I'm thinking 3 miles. It's like, oh crap. I better be more careful. So anyway, yeah, anybody's welcome to get in touch. Shoot me a text or shoot me an email.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times I've been 17,000. I'm just fat, dumb, and happy. Oh, this is great. And I'm said, oh boy, I can go, you know. And all of a sudden I wake up, it's like, I'm at 14. What happened to my altitude? And you know, there's some big sink out there.
Yeah, Scott, this was great. I really enjoyed that presentation. This was great. It brought back a lot of memories that aren't that long ago for me either. So it was very good. Scott is also one of my favorite tow pilots because he knows where the lift is. So you don't have to tell Scott where to go. He'll take you straight to the lift. It's fantastic.
You had a good one a few days ago.
I did. It was
15 knots.
Yep, that was excellent. It was perfect. Now, I want to make one point about, because you talk a lot about using the flight computer to calculate final glide to an airport, and I think that is excellent. It's a very useful tool, but this is one of my pet peeves because it took me, a tough learning experience to figure this out the first time a few years ago when I tried doing final glides with flight computers. The altitude that the flight computer will tell you that is sufficient to an airport is entirely dependent on the McCready setting that you're putting in. And so if you're a newer pilot and you think, well, I don't want to fly fast, so I'm putting in a low McCready setting. So I'm flying with McCready 0 or McCready 1 because I'm going to take every lift that I can find. If you do that, that means that your flight computer will completely overestimate how far you can glide. In other words, it will tell you that the airports are in glide that are not in glide. Because if you put in McCready 0, your flight computer assumes that you're flying at the very best glide ratio that your glider is capable of flying in still air. So if you hit any kind of sink, you're not going to make it to your destination. And so the remedy for that is if you use a flight computer for calculating which airports are in glide, use a very high McCready setting. That is the only way, because now your computer assumes you're flying fast and you're not going to fly that fast, but your computer assumes a much, much lower glide ratio as if you were flying that fast, and you will actually make it to the airport. So I wrote an article about this that I recommend anyone who wants to use flight computers for final glide calculations, please understand that, because it could get you in real trouble if you don't understand why that is.
What number, Clemens, what number do you typically use for a reading?
Yeah, I tend to use, if in benign conditions, I rely on mine pretty much at MC4, at McCready 4. But if the conditions are a little rough, I would dial it to 6 or 7 to stay safe.
But then, Clemens, you're saying you dial in at 6 or 7, but you're not flying it at 6 or 7.
No, I mean, if I'm fearful that I'm not, well, you can even fly at 6 or 7. I mean, if you wanted to, but you typically aren't. But you basically, as long as you are in glide at 6 or 7, you can always slow down and stretch your glide. If you're flying at 0 or at 1 and you're losing altitude, you have already lost against glide. You have no safety margin left. At 6 or 7, if you have an airport in glide, you always have a safety margin that is built in. I mean, another way you could also dial up you could take your bug settings to 100% or something. I mean, the bug settings they're not intuitive to me.
Altitude. You could increase.
Well, you could raise if you fly with 3,000 feet arrival altitude. That's another way of doing it. Yeah, there's multiple ways of doing it. You have to understand that there's a glide ratio and there's arrival altitude. So the further away you are from an airport, the more important actually your glide ratio becomes, and the more important your MC setting becomes. The closer you are to an airport, the less important the MC setting becomes, and the more important your arrival altitude becomes. It's pretty much
the further away you are, the less meaningful that glide ratio is, especially here in flying in and out of Boulder, where we hit so much lift and so much sink.
But I mean, over long distances, it actually evens out more than over short distances.
Yeah. And of course, another thing that I've learned the hard way in flying in Boulder is when you're coming back from, say, the Mount Evans area, there's you think, oh, great, I got a tailwind coming out of the west. Well, that tailwind is a lee side sink over the Continental Divide. And boy, there's some, it really puckers you up when you're flying through this sink and you're looking at the netto and it's 6 or 7 down for several
your glide
minutes.
ratio in those situations, your glide ratio is below 10-1. It's maybe like 7-1 or 6-1.
Yeah,
so
you're flying a lot.
You're flying. Yeah.
Yeah, even in a Venice too, you're flying a lot, dart. So, and then you come up on Mount Thornton, like Scott was saying, and you got terrain blockage, and but any rate, I've had some experiences like that, and then all of a sudden you get to some place and you hit boom and left, and you go, oh yeah, that was no problem, but it was a big problem for a while. Who else? I see Bob Caldwell's here. Bob, have you got any comments on, coming back in and making sure that you can make your airport? I know you're flying an airplane with an engine, but still, I know you want to make it. You have anything to say, Bob?
Well, first of all, I thought Scott did an excellent job. And thank you very much, Scott, for your insights there. One thing I wanted to, I think, point out that plays on what Scott mentioned is some of the, what we can call terrain traps around the Front Range here, getting back. And one of them is Estes Park. You can see on your flight computer that you can make it home from Estes Park when in fact you can't because there's terrain in the way. Another one, which Scott pointed out, is being west of Mount Thornton, and then kind of in the same vein, being over Black Hawk and Central City. You get low back there, and even though you technically have the glide to make it out of there, you don't. And so this is one of the things to pay attention to some of the early presentations that, for instance, Clemens did on land out sites. Even though that terrain is inhospitable at all those places, there are places that you could put the glider down. But the first thing I would suggest is just be aware of those terrain traps and, don't let yourself get into them. That word terrain trap kind of came about from powder skiing, where you're skiing in the backcountry and there's a depression in the hillside where you know that that's where an avalanche is going to track, and you don't want to put yourself in that terrain trap. And the same thing goes with flying gliders. Don't put yourself in these holes that you can't get out of. And so, like Scott mentioned, being back at Empire and then turning around and going, oh my God, how am I going to get back to Boulder from 12,000 feet here at Empire? And that's a real concern. And again, the point I would raise about that is when you're thermaling, constantly be looking back at the direction you want to go or the direction you have to go to escape from where you are. And so as you're circling, you get a view at each circle as to what your track can be, either returning to your home airport, returning to a safe place to land, or continuing on course. So those would be the points I would add there.
Thank you, Bob. I noticed Art Wallace has joined us. Art is a CFI glider from Southern California. Art, do you have anything to add to this conversation? We'd love to hear from you, sir.
I have to say the presentation that Scott gave was really enjoyable to listen to. It was just a lot of fun, and for those of us that have done any cross countries of any sort, really, it just brings a flood of memories back, no matter where you flew or for how far or for how long. It's just so much fun to be able to hear stories like that. I just love it. And Armand, I really appreciate you inviting me to be able to sit in on this today. It's just a heck of a lot of fun. You guys really have it together.
Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for joining us. Hey, John Barry. I see John's here. John's a Air Force pilot, went to the academy and all that, and he just bought a glider from somebody on the field and has been, starting out flying here. John, do you have any comments about what you've begun to experience flying cross country here in Boulder?
Well, thanks, Armin. It's one of those things where the most I've gotten was a silver badge way back when, quite a few years ago. And so I'm going to do those proving ground step by step. So I've already done the first one, which was the Boulder Dash, and I'm waiting for the weather to get better so I could maybe try the other one. So I'm going to take a step-by-step approach to it, even though I had a lot of flying experience, but I'm going to take great advice. I've watched every one of these videos that you guys have put together, and I tell you, I have learned so much. So I really appreciate it. But I think for me, it's going to be a step-by-step procedure, talking to mentors, talking to folks who've done it before, and keep expanding my own experience base. But this has been outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I also saw Jeff Clayton is here. Jeff is a very experienced Air Force pilot, was flying F-16 and then got, when he got out, he got helicopter CFII. He was a glider student of mine, and I became actually a student of his, I think more. He's an excellent pilot. He's just started to do cross country, and he is really knocking the cover off the ball. Jeff, have you got anything to add to all this that you've experienced in starting out your cross country glider cross country career, if you will?
Well, thanks, Armin. First, also, I'd like to add my kudos to Scott. That was really cool to hear what I'm kind of going through mentally. I'm still kind of at those beginning stages that you were talking about. For me, it's, I have some experience in cross country and hang gliders, but it was a lot less well thought out than seems to be the case these days, at least in gliders. So some of that's positive, and that I know it can be done. And I know you can lose that fear that you're not going to be able to land where you started. But also, it's a little bit odd for me because hang gliders don't have anywhere near the performance of a sailplane. So I'm trying to, wrap my head around that. The other thing I've been dealing with is kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that I've been going back and forth between Georgia and Boulder. So I'll go some periods of time, and Clemens has talked about that, the recency factor. So that's one of the things that I'm working through on that. I did get up and wave, so I have the experience of having flown over some of that terrain, albeit in much different conditions than I would be doing to do a cross country in the soaring season. So as far as what I've experienced, I also like what Scott was saying about go up in poor conditions, because I got my commercial glider rating in I guess towards the end of October. So most of my flying has been when the conditions have been kind of weak. So I've really had to work for what I have been able to do. So hopefully that pays off in the future.
Well, you're doing great, and I hope you spend more time in Colorado, especially this summer when we have good soaring season.
Yeah. My plan is to be here full time for a while. So
great. Well, we'll see you at the field and get up there and soar. I also see Bob Ferris, our chief flight instructor, is with us. Bob is just an outstanding cross-country pilot. He holds, I forgot how many, like 50 or something, or 60 state records in multiple states, and he flies glider more than anybody I know. Bob, have you got anything to add to this conversation?
Well, I think Scott did a great job in presenting how he got into it. I think one thing I would emphasize, maybe rather than try to get up and jump the divide right off the bat, it's probably a lot safer to be running north-south lines. Gives you a lot more options to get out when you're learning. Just a little less exciting. I mean, it's great to get over on the other side of the divide, but there's a lot more traps that you can get in over there. So, and the other thing I emphasize with all my students talking about beginning cross country is probably the most dangerous place out of Boulder is between Boulder and Mount Evans. So it's kind of an easy jump to get back there, but it's also an easy place to get trapped, as we've been talking about all night. So just be really careful on that route back in that area. Besides that, just go out and have fun, and like Scott did, kind of ease your way into it and have fun.
And I'll add for you, make sure you put your flights on OLC. Bob Caldwell tells us if it isn't on OLC, it didn't happen. And, the club needs the points. We're competitive with a couple other clubs in the Western US, and we want to be number one again. So let's everybody get out there. Let's fly the 2-disc guy that we have. Let's fly the DG. And of course, a lot of us have our own ships. So let's get out there and let's run up some points. Hopefully we'll have a good season this summer. Some of us are going out to Nephi to fly. And so we just need to get these points. So at any rate, does anybody else want to chime in here? I can't call on everybody, but I called on a few who I saw. Anybody else? Sure. Well, all right then. Thanks so much. Next week, we're going to hear from our aspiring pilots, guys, people who are just starting to get up and fly, and most of them are just orbiting the airport. But like Scott, brought to us today, yeah, you can start out just orbiting the airport, or trying to make it to the hogback and losing your getting scared and racing back towards the airport. And I think we're going to hear from those pilots, and the bunch of us who are here and are getting past the hogback. We need to be encouraging those guys. So we'll look forward to seeing you all next week for the capstone session. Please go to the our YouTube channel and subscribe and like the ones that are on there. And with that, I will say goodnight to everybody.
Okay, thank you, Armand.
See y'all at the field.
Thank you.